Matthew, thank you. Let's get right away to breaking news. Owasso police say 2 people are dead this morning inside a home near Morrow Elementary School. Our 2 News Oklahoma CJ Macklin is live in Owasso with the details about what we know so far confirmed from Owasso police.
That's right. We did talk to the Owasso Police Department this morning. Captain Boatman, to be exact. He did say officers did respond to the Morrow Place neighborhood right before midnight, right here on North 130th East Avenue. Now, 2 people were found dead right before midnight, a male and a female from a domestic violence incident.
On July 23, 2026, at around 11:15 p.m., a child called 911 from a home in Owasso, Oklahoma. He didn't explain what was happening before the line went silent. In the background, the dispatcher heard a woman screaming and crying, then a loud noise. Attempts to reconnect failed. Moments later, the same child, Sara Gilson's son, reached a neighbor's house and made a second call. He said his stepfather had shot his mother. When officers entered the home, they found 43-year-old Sara Gilson and her estranged husband, 48-year-old Jeremiah Shawn Duffey, dead from gunshot wounds. Police said the evidence pointed to Duffey shooting Sara before killing himself. The boy who made the call was physically unharmed and was later released to a parent who had no involvement in what happened. Duffey was not supposed to be inside that house. A court order required him to stay at least 100 yards from Sara and the property. Before we go back to how a restraining order, an abuse allegation, and a 15-year-old's 911 report ended in a murder-suicide, this is 10K Crimes. Subscribe so we can walk through everything that led to that night.
66.
32 and 66. I'm trying to reach him back, but I could hear a female in the background screaming and crying. Some sort of loud bang in the background.
That old male that we were looking for a few weeks ago after he got caught kissing a juvenile.
The story didn't start with the 911 call. It started 6 weeks earlier with a youth basketball team, a coach who intervened, and an allegation involving a 15-year-old girl. Before she became the woman at the center of a viral TikTok and a murder-suicide investigation, Sara Gilson was a mother, a hairstylist, and a familiar face to thousands of people online. She had 2 children from an earlier relationship and worked at Glaze Salon, where she shared beauty tips, outfits, and ordinary moments from her life. The people closest to her say motherhood mattered more to her than any following she built. There's footage of Sara from before the final weeks of her life. In January 2025, a local television station interviewed her and Shawn as Owasso parents, reacting to an unrelated investigation into missing money from an elementary school's parent-teacher organization. Sara talked about funds families had raised for the kids. Shawn appeared in the same segment. At the time, it was just 2 parents commenting on a local issue. Now the footage carries different weight, because it preserves Sara's voice before most people knew her from the TikTok she'd post shortly before her death.
Thank you for joining us at 5. I'm Erin Christie. First tonight, though, the Owasso Police Department is investigating a complicated financial crime involving an elementary school's parent-teacher organization. 2 News anchor Sharon Phillips listened to parents' concerns and breaks down what happened.
Families in Owasso were recently contacted by the school district, alerting them to a, quote, serious issue involving PTO funds for Morrow Elementary. Officials say following a review of the organization's financial documents, they noticed discrepancies in the Morrow PTO account. I spoke with Owasso parents Shawn and Sara Duffey.
We have 7 kids combined, and so our kids work hard to go earn money for their schools. It's so important for them to have what they need for their education, emotionally, mentally, to support the teachers, and I think it just takes out of the pockets of its school, the teachers, obviously, but honestly, it's really about the kids.
It's disgusting. It's honestly disgusting because like I said, I got 7 kids. I also coach basketball at Crossover Prep there in Tulsa, and just to hear stuff like that just blows my mind that people would take away from the kids.
Her best friend of 23 years, Kelsey Lard, spent part of Sara's final day with her and remembers her laughing and joking, behaving exactly like the friend she'd known for over 2 decades. Her co-workers at Glaze Salon remember the chair she left empty. Her children were left without their mother. And the people who loved her have spent the time since trying to keep 43 years of life from being reduced to one video and one night. The events that led to that night began on June 9th, when a 15-year-old girl and one of her parents went to the Owasso Police Department. They reported an alleged incident involving Jeremiah Shawn Duffey, who coached the girls' traveling basketball team. The team had been using a court inside an elementary school, though police later clarified that Duffey and the program had no connection to Owasso Public Schools. The group had simply rented the facility while school was out. Another coach reportedly witnessed the conduct and intervened. The girl's parent was contacted, and the matter was reported to police. The report didn't stop at what allegedly happened that evening. The girl's parent described earlier communications and encounters that raised further concerns about Duffey's conduct toward the teenager, and the filing alleged he'd tried to discourage her from speaking about it. These are allegations recorded in police reports and court documents. Duffey was never convicted of an offense involving the girl, and none of it was tested at trial. Still, investigators were told the June 9th incident might not have been isolated, and that similar conduct involving the same teenager may have occurred over a longer period, in more than one jurisdiction. That last detail complicated things. Duffey was a citizen of the Osage Nation, and police said the reported incident occurred in Indian country. Owasso police gathered statements, tried to locate him, and referred a report listing possible lewd molestation of a minor to the United States Attorney's Office for review. That referral didn't mean Duffey had been charged or found guilty. It meant the matter had moved into federal jurisdiction. By then, he'd reportedly left the area, and local officers hadn't found him. Police had already spoken with the teenager, her parent, and the coach who intervened. Then they contacted Sara. On June 10th, Sara asked a judge for an emergency protective order against Duffey, and the judge granted it. He was ordered to leave the residence they'd shared and to stay at least 100 yards from Sara and the property. In her filing, Sara raised another concern. She told the court Duffey had access to a firearm. She also said he'd threatened to take his own life and had disappeared after learning about the allegation involving the teenage player. A separate protective order was granted on behalf of the 15-year-old girl. On June 23rd, Sara's order was extended through August 24th. For the first time, the separation between her and Duffey wasn't just personal, it was written into a court order. This wasn't the first time their relationship had reached the legal system. Court records show Sara had sought protection from Duffey twice in 2021, and both cases were dismissed after she didn't attend the scheduled hearings. The records don't explain why she missed those dates. They don't prove she no longer wanted protection or believed the relationship had become safe. They only establish that concerns had reached the court years earlier. After Sara's death, her former husband and the father of her children, Lyle Landers, said he'd urged her for years to leave Duffey. That's his account, not a finding made by any court. But by June 2026, the documented sequence was clear. Police had contacted Sara about a serious allegation. She'd gone to court. Duffey had been ordered out of the home, and that order remained active. On July 11th, Sara posted a video using a social media trend where creators imagined themselves being interviewed for a future Netflix documentary. She sat silently in front of the camera while text appeared above her, referring to a documentary about the man she called her soon-to-be former husband and using the word pedophile. That was Sara's public accusation. The underlying allegation involving the teenager had not been proven in court. In the caption, she wrote that she wished she were joking. The post didn't start the investigation. A report had already been made to police, a coach had already intervened, protective orders were already in place for both Sara and the teenager, and the allegation against Duffey had already gone to federal review. What the TikTok did was make public something several people and agencies were already handling privately. After Sara's death, viewers went back to that video looking for a warning in her expression. There isn't evidence she recorded it believing she'd soon be killed, and police haven't confirmed the post caused the shooting or established Duffey's motive. What it did create was a timestamp. On July 11th, Sara was publicly referring to allegations against the man she called her soon-to-be former husband. 12 days later, police found him inside her home. Police said the evidence indicates Duffey killed Sara and then died by suicide, and that there's no continuing threat to the surrounding community. That conclusion answers who fired the shots. It doesn't explain how Duffey got back onto the property he'd been ordered to stay away from. Publicly available information doesn't establish whether Sara knew he was coming, whether he entered without permission, or how long he'd been inside before that first call. Police haven't announced a confirmed motive either. What's known is that Duffey had already been ordered out of the home, that Sara had reported he had access to a firearm, and that on the final night, her son was running to a neighbor for help. Because Duffey died inside the house, detectives will never be able to ask him why he came back or what happened before the shooting. A protective order is a legal command. It can set boundaries and give police grounds to act once a violation is reported, but it can't physically stop someone from returning. Before July 23rd, Owasso police say they'd received no earlier reports that Duffey had violated Sara's order. Then he was found inside the home anyway. Nothing in the public record shows that any officer, judge, or agency knew he planned to be there that night. That leaves real questions without simple answers. How was the risk assessed after Sara reported he had access to a firearm? What happened after police couldn't locate him? How did he end up inside the house without an earlier violation ever being reported? Those questions may stay part of the investigation, but they'll never be put to Duffey in an interview or a courtroom. The same is true of the allegations involving the 15-year-old player. Federal Review hadn't produced a publicly announced charge before Duffey's death, so those allegations were never tested in court either. That means the record now holds several different things side by side: what the teenager and her parent reported, what Sara told the court, what Sara later said publicly, and what police concluded happened on July 23rd. They belong to the same story, but they aren't the same kind of evidence. The teenager's allegations remain allegations. Sara's killing will never go in front of a jury. There will be no defendant made to explain why he came back. For her family, one fact never depended on a courtroom: her children lost their mother. After Sara's death, the July 11 TikTok became the image most attached to her name. People watched it knowing what came next and treated it like a final message. It wasn't. Sara kept posting in the days that followed. A post about female friendship on July 16th. A photo of herself looking out over the water from a boat on July 21st. Her pages never held a complete account of what she was going through. They showed selected pieces of her life: work, clothes, friends, humor, whatever she chose to share. But they also preserved her voice. Here are a few videos of Sara Gilson living her life before her tragic end.
To a baseball game, I'm so excited. I love this halter top from Amazon. I think it's so cute. And I have these black shorts from American Eagle. They're some of my favorites. I have Vans and I have my Aloe Sunset sneakers. I don't know which one I'm gonna wear. And then I have another top. Let me show you that one. I also have this top that I got from Aerie. I don't know, I love this little baby doll look. I just think it's so cute, and it looks cute with these shorts. So either way, I think I'm going with these shorts, and I don't know on shoes. So help me in the comments, tell me which one I should wear. I hope you guys are
baddest queens rule like this. Yeah, they rule like this.
Sara Gilson was full of life. It was cut short by a man the court had already ordered to stay away from her. Here's what detectives and neighbors have to say about the case.
It's approximately 11:15 last night. We got an emergency 911 call to our dispatch center. Officers responded. They made entry into the house where they found deceased male and deceased female.
2 News confirmed the victims are Sara and Jeremiah Duffey, who went by Shawn. I interviewed this couple last year for another story. Court records show Sara filed multiple protective orders against Shawn, with the most recent just this past June. Those documents paint a troubling picture of a woman trying to protect herself. I talk with neighbor Brittany Fisher, who tells me she was stunned by this tragedy.
Domestic violence does not discriminate. It does not pick you just because you have a nice home or you're you're basically in a situation where you earn a higher income. Social, economically, it does not discriminate.
Neighbors like John Blackwell, who knew the family through their children's basketball team, is grappling with the heartbreaking reality that someone he trusted was capable of this.
2 of my daughters played with his daughter since they were about 12 or 13 for the Ballers. And then, Shawn would help out with practices a lot.
Blackwell's words echo what domestic violence advocates have long said. Abuse often happens behind closed doors, even in families that seem picture perfect from the outside.
And you just don't know what's going on behind people's doors. You think everything's fine, and something like this happens, it just makes you sad.
Now, this community is mourning, not just for Sara and Shawn, but for the children who will forever be changed by what happened here. Police say there's no ongoing threat, but the emotional wounds in this neighborhood will take much longer to heal.
It's just a sad, sad situation for the family.
In that earlier local news interview, Sara was speaking as a parent concerned about money allegedly taken from an elementary school organization. "We've got to take care of our kids," she said, talking about the families and children who'd raised the funds. At the time, it was an ordinary quote in an ordinary local segment. After her death, it carries a meaning no one involved in that report could have anticipated. Her friends don't want one interview or one TikTok to stand in for the rest of her life. Kelsey Lard remembers a friend who laughed, joked, and showed up for people. Her co-workers still see the chair she used to sit in at Glaze Salon, and the people closest to her say she'd want to be remembered as a mother first. None of that erases how she died. It just places her death inside a much bigger life. Sara was a hairstylist before she was a headline, a friend before strangers started sharing her video, and a mother before a call from inside her own home turned a private loss into a national story. On July 11th, Sara sat in front of a camera and imagined a future documentary about the man she called her soon-to-be former husband. On July 23rd, her son was asking a neighbor to call for help. Sara Gilson was 43 years old. She left behind 2 children, an empty chair at the salon, and people determined not to let the final moments of her life erase everything that came before them. For 10K Crimes, this is the story of Sara Gilson. Please subscribe. That support is what keeps us digging into cases like this. See you in the next case.